Hope Radio, Kingfisher FM.
Good day. You are tuned to Your Financial Journey, where planning matters. Brought to you by Risk-Free Solutions, an accredited Old Mutual Agency franchise, with Vernon DeVos and Ethan Black. The show that helps you make quality decisions and thrive. Unpack your future and make it better. Every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. right here on 107.5 FM.
Fun and games in the studio this afternoon with Vernon DeVos and our very special guest online. Vernon, you are a naughty boy.
Yeah, it's good to be in studio, Ethan. We had a bit of fun, so that's all good.
We've got Jaco on the line with us, our very special guest who plays along really well.
Yes.
One day we'll have to catch these clips and put them on air, but maybe not right now.
Yeah. Jaco is one of my very senior financial planners. He's been on radio before, so it's good to have him back. I want to say to the listeners out there, he's got a wealth of experience. Even the clientele that he deals with is at the top end of our business. So Jaco's got a lot of knowledge. So welcome, Jaco, all the way from Kimberley's on the phone. So he's in our Kimberley office. So welcome, Jaco. I know you had a rough night last night as well with your boys, but thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Vinny. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you kindly for inviting me again. It's a real pleasure. Yes, you never know, once you have kids, you never know what's around the next bend, but the bend in the road is the end in the road if you don't make the turn. So I've made a lot of turns in my life, but it's wonderful to be back. Thank you, guys.
Jaco, I know that today we're talking about an interesting topic, unpacking a little bit of the formalization of a loan agreement between private individuals. Maybe you can just explain what that means to me, a lay person. What are you talking about here?
All right, yes. Last time I spoke about the budget, that was the previous thing, but it tied into this. What do you do when you don't have an income? Because if you don't have an income, what good is a budget? So I'm basically going to focus on either the private individuals or a small business owner where an employee or somebody that you know, whether it's a private individual or in a semi-business relationship, wants to borrow money. How do you go about a bit more formalizing that? I hope that positions it quite well.
Do you mean I'm borrowing money from a bank or from a business partner or what?
No, you see, that's the thing. That's basically a bit later. I'll talk about that. But banks go about, they give credit cards, they give home loans, they give car finance, vehicle finance, that type of thing. But all of those things, I'm not going to talk about that today because that's formalized. That is a formalized way you go in, you online, you apply, or whatever you do. That's formal. But today we're going to talk about the informal sector. I mean, today's the 25th. If you guys don't mind, I'll just step right into it.
Go for it.
Today's the 25th of March. Today is exactly the last day of a year of lockdown. We were supposed to initially do it only for 21 days. But in the second quarter of 2020, meaning from the 1st of April to the end of June, that 3-month period, it's a bad stat, but according to Stats SA, 670,000 people in South Africa in the formal sector, excluding agriculture, lost their jobs. So I always maintain that relationship is more important than money. These figures don't mean a lot until you take into consideration that a lot of these people, these 670,000 plus people, they're not just individuals. They are people that are part of the sandwich generation. So each individual represents perhaps a person with a partner or a person with children and perhaps parents and grandparents. You need to eat. You need to put your kids in school. You need medical attention. Winter is coming, clothing. So it's a heavy thing to stomach to think that all of these people are without income. Guys, forgive me if you guys want to come in. You need to come in there. Sorry for breaking my own word here, but last time there was a problem with the sound. I couldn't hear you guys, but please come in anytime. So
no problem.
I'm not going to spend time on the bank side and all that. I'm going to talk very specifically about the very real and very daily thing of borrowing and lending money between private individuals. I want you to imagine a responsible person. You use the budget. He saved up 3 months of expenses. In 2017, he bought a house, and then in 2018, he bought a car. In 2019, the baby was born, and then 2020 came. He lost his job. You know, he did what he could to survive, but now, at this day, 1 year later, he's out now at the end of his tether. Now, this individual, again, I'm emphasizing the point. This is a responsible person, but he's at the end now. Perhaps he's got a father, perhaps he's got a brother or a friend, and he goes to this person and he says to that person, you know, please help me. My house is at the point of being repossessed. Even if I give back the car that I bought, if I give that back, that I'm still going to owe the bank more money. My ITC is already shot. I've exhausted all the COVID relief options. If you don't help me, then I'm going to lose everything. Now, I, as an individual, I would hope that there is not a father or a brother or a friend that if it is within that father or brother or sister or mother's means, if it is within her means, that they won't help. But this is the exact moment that I want to talk about.
Right.
And the best advice at this moment that I can give anyone that is hearing this, regardless of whether you are the borrower or whether you are the lender, is this. The best advice I can give you is this. Get good advice. Now, what does that mean practically? Well, for starters, it means that you have to sit down, you've got to stop, and you've got to decide to be honest. You've got to be honest with yourself. You've got to be honest with the other party. If you're the borrower, I mean, I've experienced it in my life. I think everybody has. If you're desperate, you will say anything. You will beg, you will lie, you will steal. I hope you won't murder. But you'll say, I'll pay you back next week. But you don't have a plan. You don't know how you're going to pay back this person next week. I mean, COVID and government lockdowns took a lot from us. Maybe it took your dignity. But at least let it not take your integrity. Be honest. If you're the lender, and again, I'm referring on the other side now to also a responsible person. If you worked according to a budget and you blocked your different funds, this is an emergency fund, that's that, and you've got money left, then be honest about it. Don't say, Mia, can you help me? I can't help you. It's not right. So from that point on, after if you can lend money to somebody, or if you know somebody that can lend money to you, if you're in that position, the second step, and only then you move on to the second step, and that is to get perspective. What I mean by getting perspective is this, and I'm going to talk about myself now from my personal experience. I, as a financial advisor, I've got to have a lot of knowledge about. Sorry, did you want to say something, guys?
No, not at all. Just carry on, Jaco.
No. Okay. Sorry. As a financial advisor, I've got to have a wealth of knowledge over a lot of different, distinct different areas. Like, for example, taxation. I've got to know how things will impact a person's income tax or a company's VAT burden that they have to pay over to the government. There's legislation, there's product knowledge, there's people knowledge. You've got to know people, you've got to interpret what they are saying and why they are saying these things. But all of these things come together, and that's my advice that I give. But all of these areas and all of the knowledge means diddly squat if you're not given the opportunity to give the advice. Then I think I tried to calculate earlier. We are 23, 24 years now in the financial services industry, and that's my experience. I don't know you. You must talk from your experience. But in my experience, the bulk of problems that I've had to solve where people came to me, whether they are clients or they are referrals that came from other clients, were preventable, meaning that we could have prevented these problems from happening if they had consulted me before they made certain decisions and affected those decisions. So get perspective, get somebody else to look, not somebody close, somebody outside to look into the situation. Now, you can go to a lawyer, you can go to an accountant, you can go to a financial advisor, but any one of these that are worth their salt, they will ask and I advise that both parties sit there, both the potential borrower and both the potential lender must sit in front of this person, or these days with a Zoom meeting. And then this person will have to ask difficult and unpopular questions. Like, for example, what happens if and when you can't pay back the money? And then keep quiet and listen to the answers. Other questions might be, what happens if one of you should die? Will the loan be interest-bearing or will it be a zero-interest loan? Because there might be tax implications. And all of these questions and answers will result in a better understanding and hopefully in more comprehensive communication. And if you guys decipher all of this, through this mindset, because every situation is unique, and if you at that point get to the point you say, you know what, this can actually work. We can actually be responsible about this, not stuff up relationships. And then only do you take action. You don't jump from the first point where you say, oh, please help me, to, okay, let's take some action. We just don't do the due diligence here. And what do I mean by then only do you take action? Well, depending on the answers, there might be a need for a contract, or there might be a need to make certain changes to the different parties' wills. Again, as a financial advisor, we network with specialist people, in the tax field, in the legal side of things. We've got legal consultants on call that we can do. And if I may interrupt myself, I'm going to use this as an example. There's a client of mine that she came to me earlier this week, and look, I'm not going to give too much detail, but I'm going to explain it in a very summarized way. The client
Jaco
has a mother. Yes, Bernie?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is just keep that story. I think we're just going to go to a break.
Yes, move on.
And then, when we come back from the break, I think then elaborate on the story.
Yeah, I think we've taken in a lot of information at this point in time, and appreciate the fact that you're touching on very difficult situations where responsible people have to approach somebody from an outside perspective to say to them,
yes,
I want to and I need some guidance around borrowing or lending money without causing a division in my family or in my friends' circle. So I appreciate that. I think all of us need to hear this type of honest, frank discussions. We're going to break away.
Your inspiration station. It's Kingfisher FM. Refresh your heart. Refresh your soul. 24 hours a day. This is Kingfisher FM.
A great pleasure to have Risk-Free Solutions in studio with us this afternoon. Go and check them out online for good financial advice when it comes to whatever situation you're in. We're talking about a difficult scenario, obviously with COVID, that's impacted people who have lost jobs, responsible people who are sitting in a position now where they are in a bind and they need to maybe approach people in their circle, circle of trust, their family or their friends, and say, look, I need some help. And how do we go about seeking advice in this scenario? We're talking to Jaco. Vernon's in studio with us as well.
Yeah, Jakes. Jaco, you had a story, and maybe you want to just talk us through that story?
Thank you. Thank you again. Yes, it actually transpired earlier on in this week. Now, this is an existing client. She's got both her parents are still alive, but unfortunately her parents went through a divorce a good couple of years ago. And what happened was, at that stage, she wasn't my client. We didn't set up a proper plan. We didn't set up a proper agreement. Like I said, she wasn't my client at that stage, but subsequently she did become my client. So what happened was she borrowed money to her mother, quite a significant amount, and that money was to help with the settlement, the divorce agreement, so that the mother could actually sort of buy out the father out of the house, so that they can have a clean split, that the mother is not dependent on the father. And in return, she would gain a 50% share in that property, but obviously a 0% share in the loan. That would be the mother's part that she has to take care of. But now we're at the point that the divorce has gone through long ago, but now we're at the point that the mother wants to sell the house. And they didn't prepare for this eventuality, and now there's a bit of a tiff going, if I can use the euphemism, between the two ladies. So she called me in, and I had to do the process. In other words, they consulted. They did the first thing at least right this time round. They got a person external to consult with. And where it is now that they actually said, okay, it will be actually good that if we sell this house, because, again, this daughter, she's also married now. She's got 2 daughters of her own. And the firstborn, is going to go to varsity in 2 years' time. So it comes at the right time for them, and they feel that it is a good thing to do. But now this time around, the difference is, and that's perhaps a practical example that I can go through, to summarize, the first piece of advice, if I can just summarize it that way, is to always get good advice. They've done that. Both parties have now been honest with me. I hopefully helped them to get the perspective in it, and now we're going to take the action. So what action are we going to do now? What is the result of this time around them doing the right thing in the right way? Is that now we're going to draw up a formal contract this time around. And I'm not going to go into detail of that. I did consult with our legal guys in Bloemfontein, gave them all the information. They're going to draw up both the agreement and both ladies' will in this instance. And I might add, just for argument's sake, that because they're already existing clients, it's going to be done free of charge. So this whole process is not costing them a cent. But we're doing that. So the agreement plus the wills are set up. But it goes even further than that. That's the other point that I needed to touch on. The tax, because now there's a capital gain. How are we gonna justify this in this regard with this agreement in place, the original agreement in place? So we consulted with accountants, and we got a good answer there, the way that we need to structure. The way that they initially wanted to do it was actually going to attract unnecessary tax. Again, I'm saying we're being honest. We're not doing something to avoid illegally avoid tax. We are basically just making sure that we are doing things in a proper way that is legal, so that they don't pay unnecessary tax. So it's the contract, it's the wills, it's the tax consultation that we did, and we're structuring things right. And now, because they are properly prepared, relationships have been restored. The mother is happy, the daughter is happy. They actually can live again in one house and carry on with their lives. And that's a good deal. That's a good place. All that it basically cost them was the time that they spent with me, listening to me, asking the probing questions, and it didn't cost them a cent. And now they're going to save all the tax that they would have paid, and they can have a good relationship henceforth. I think that's a good deal.
Yeah, I think also from a financial planning point of view, I think it's so important to consult your financial planner and to have that discussion, because it does impact your existing financial plan if you enter into a different agreement or a different loan. And I think, if the listeners out there are listening to this, and you might find yourself in this situation where you have somebody that has asked you to borrow money and you feel, should I, shouldn't I? Maybe follow the process that we've just spoken about. Don't make an emotional decision about it. Make a sensible decision by, number one, saying to the lender, listen, let's consult somebody. Let's get somebody in. Let's talk it through. Let's discuss the probing questions as you mentioned. Let's look at the possible scenarios that could happen. Then let the borrower at that point in time decide if he still wants to go ahead with it or not.
Yeah.
After that has taken place, then formalize the informal agreement. As you mentioned, Jaco, get legal guys involved so that everybody understands the parameters of what has been discussed. Because you know what happens in 4 or 5 years' time, nobody remembers what happened, but if it's in writing and everybody's signed, it's so easy to go back to that agreement and then to remind ourselves what we actually agreed to at that particular point in time.
Exactly.
And it's so important. It's so important. And again, from a financial planning point of view, it does have an impact.
Yeah.
And we need to consider that.
Yeah, I also want to just say thanks for making us think about it, Jaco, because not only do you go back to the agreement, but also things change over time, and there would be things that I don't even think of that you as a financial planner would bring in. I wouldn't think about the tax. I wouldn't think if somebody died. I wouldn't think if, all of a sudden somebody else got into debt, and all these types of things, scenarios that you would potentially have raised and helped us to address.
Yeah, and also sorry, Jaco, maybe the listeners are thinking, we're talking about large sums of money. We're not necessarily talking about large sums of money. We're talking about any type of money, even if it's 10,000 Rand, to the borrower, that could be a heck of a lot of money just to lend out, So I think it applies to all types of money.
I agree. There was a different scenario, but I'm not going to go into detail that, but I want to emphasize the point. Yes, number one, things change. This is exactly what happened. The daughter and the mother, that was the relation where the relationship got strained, is because the mother, or let me say the grandmother, changed. She changed the parameters of what was going to happen, and it wasn't discussed thoroughly. Same thing happened with other sets of clients, but yes, it changes, and people change. The circumstances change, and you've got to look out for the sake of relationship, for the sake of this thing that you're doing, to get to the end result, the proper ending that you want, that everybody wants, to look for those eventualities. And you can't do that on your own. If there's a problem with my car, I take it to a mechanic. If my son is ill, I take him to the pediatrician. I'm not a know-it-all. And on this specific area, I know my stuff. But for other stuff, I go to other people, and it should be the same for all of us. We're not God.
Thanks, Jaco. I think that's great advice, really great advice. And again, as Ethan's mentioned, just a different perspective. Good food for thought. Thanks, Jaco. Thanks for your time.
That's where we landed. Jaco, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your insights and approaching a topic that is quite sensitive. We look forward to our next discussion happening next week, Thursday, 4:30, with Risk Free Solutions, and Vernon de Vos and myself. And Jaco, we look forward to hosting you again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you kindly, guys.
Your motivation station. This is Kingfisher FM.